Hello, everyone. I see a lot of people coming in, just joining us. Hello, welcome to I think it's our fourth Fireside chat with our design expert right now, um, Arlen McCarthy. Hi, Alan.
Hello.
I'm Althea, by the way. I'm from the growth team at Academy XI, and we're super excited to be chatting with Arlen today and just trying to fish out his thoughts around mentorship in the UX UI field. So we're expecting around 30 to 40 people in this webinar. So maybe I'll give it like 2 to 3 minutes before we formally start. So we have our chat box here at the bottom. Feel free to shout out where you're from, where you're joining this webinar from, and let's do a bit of virtual networking, you guys. So yeah, I'm from Sydney, and I think Arlen is also located in Sydney, right? Yeah.
Yeah, live in Sydney.
Yeah, perfect. And if you guys want to have anything to share on social media, don't forget to tag us. We have our LinkedIn, our Facebook, and our Instagram handle here for you guys to tag us. And yeah, before we start properly, just a few Zoom tips. You can post your questions in the Q&A function starting now. So there's a button here at the bottom. So yeah, we'll try to answer them at the end of the chats, and yeah, hopefully get through them one by one. We also encourage you to upvote any questions that you like us to answer first, so we can just get to the burning ones quickly. And yeah, also we're recording this webinar. So in case you want to if you have something to do very important, feel free to exit and we'll send you the links later on. Grab some coffee or tea. Feel free to have like 2 minutes for yourself, and then we'll begin soon. All right, let me just stop sharing the screen. I think we have enough participants right now. So, oh, we have some people from Sydney. Hi, Kritika. Hi, Pooja. Excited for this session. Yeah. All right, seems like we're all ready to go. So I'll start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are gathering today, and wherever you're joining us from. We'd like to pay our respects to Aboriginal elders, past, present, and emerging. So I think some of you completely know about Academy XI, so welcome. And for those who don't know, great to have you with us. Our mission is to enable professional development and address Australia's digital skill gap. So by 2025, it is estimated that an average Australian worker will need 7 digital skills to close this gap. In terms of what that actually looks like, well, we're going to need about 79% more newly skilled and reskilled tech workers by 2025 to meet this challenge. It is really a big challenge we're all up against, and we are looking to help play that role in solving it. We have we have an amazing community of tech, design, and business and marketing professionals who are the lifeblood of our organization. So today is a great opportunity to get amongst our community and start connecting with one another. So please allow me to briefly introduce our guest, Arlen. He is our design expert today. Arlen is an accomplished and talented experience designer. He is also our lead UX UI mentor here at Academy XI. So Arlen, would you like to introduce a bit about yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Arlen. I've been in the industry for about 13 years now, and I've worked in such a variety of places, everything from corporates to startups, in-house, agency side, freelanced for all of that time. And it's exposed me to many different types of projects and stakeholders and environments.
Yeah, sounds good. Super keen to learn more about your experience. So let's kick it off. We got a few questions to start. And after, like I mentioned before, we have the Q&A box ready for you guys to just throw in your questions. So yeah, Arlen, can you share us about your career history?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people that enroll in Academy Exercise courses, I transitioned into design. I started life as an electrician of all things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What drew me to design was I had an older friend growing up who was a graphic designer, and I would often sit behind him and watch him do his thing, and it always appealed to me. So it was something that I wanted to get into. And it was years later that I went to, I think it was a meetup. It was a long time ago, and I didn't actually know where I was going, but it was a UX oriented meetup. And I met someone who would play a big part in my career. Her name was Katja Forbes, and she's been in the industry for a very long time. Before we were calling it UX design, it used to be called information architecture.
Oh,
And she was an information architect, and she delivered an explanation of what UX design was. And I'd never heard of it before that point. And it was so appealing and so motivating that that's when I decided that I wanted to become a UX designer. So UX and graphic design are quite different,
yeah.
but they're also related. So I decided to put on hold becoming a graphic designer, and I decided to become a UX designer, and I got into the industry that way.
That's so cool. So what are like some of the like companies that you worked with? What were their like categories? Were there like tech companies,
Oh,
freelance?
everything. I've worked for just about every acronym in Sydney. So CBA, IAG, NRMA, AMP. I could go on and on with those. But uh, it was, in terms of like industry types, like finance is a very common one, accounting, agriculture, energy, and HR related things as well. Such a diverse and broad amount of projects. And to be honest, I almost have to look at my LinkedIn to remember everything I've done.
No worries, take your time. Yeah, but what can you give us maybe one UX design project that you've worked on in the past that you'd like to share to our viewers? And yeah, and how has it challenged or rewarded you in a way?
Well, each project has its own challenges and rewards. You always learn something. Like being a designer in the industry, it's about design skills, but it's also about people management and soft skills and relatability. So every single project brings its own rewards. Probably one that I really appreciated being part of was like a bit of a hybrid UX service design project. I was working with IAG's innovation department, and this was when the Tesla batteries had just come out, and they were
Yeah.
looking at ways to incorporate the battery storage for solar power at home. So
Okay.
we did this big project on how we could incorporate that. We did a bit of research into like on-grid and off-grid, on-peak and off-peak times. So, the technology, generally speaking, it needs time to get to the ability to be more efficient. So this was early days in the technology of batteries. So they were limited in what they were capable of doing. And, solar panels are all good and all, but they're most effective in the middle of the day. But for your average family, that's when everyone's out of the home.
Yeah.
So it's about how do we utilize that and store it for like the most used times. So we incorporated a system where it was still utilizing the solar panels and still utilizing some from the grid to top up, but the battery would enable it so that in those peak usage times, families could draw from that electricity for the big tasks. That was really fun and rewarding.
Yeah, that sounds good. Um, like I think that would be like way back 2015, 16, like
About
when
that, yeah.
yeah, that's so cool. So I know our topic really right now is thank you for sharing that by the way. But yeah, so our focus is mostly about mentoring. So we have a lot of students joining us in who's very curious, trying to find out like, do I really need a mentor? Is that essential? in my journey as a UX designer, or basically in learning in general. So maybe I'll ask you first, like from doing all these work experience with big companies, and I'm sure you're still doing some of those. And you mentioned freelancing work as well. So, what led you to mentoring specifically with Academy XI?
Well, I was actually kind of part of Academic Side from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And what led me to mentoring, it was actually accidental. I had no idea that it's something that I would enjoy, or something that I wanted to do. But Academic Side, I just started running courses. I was one of the very first teachers of those courses. And I just enjoyed doing it. I had no idea that I would. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was very young at the time as well. I was about 23. And, at the time I was very much obsessed about the craft, design,
Yeah.
to learn more about it. But having been exposed to teaching and mentoring is a natural progression if you so choose in your career.
Yeah.
Like
True.
you start, and the reality is, you can mentor someone on the basis of, like, if you know more than someone, then you can offer, advice to people and guidance. And I think it's a natural progression in your career, even from how teams are set up in organizations. You have juniors, you have mids, you have seniors, you have leads, and inevitably you reach a point in your career where you direct people, and you delegate and assign tasks. So
Yeah.
mentoring becomes a part of that. It's not just about giving people things to do. It's about making sure that they have the skills to be able to do them effectively as well. And also, organizations are very much about growth for their people, especially in UX design. So it's really a part of, it's sort of inbuilt into the culture that you should always have, like, an expectation that the person who you report to or your manager has your best interests and your career progression in mind.
Yeah, that's right. And it kind of works like you don't even need to be like a mentor at specific school to realize that you're doing mentoring at all. It could be like within your company.
100%.
So yeah. I didn't I think you didn't share it before. Like, did you take a boot camp in UX UI when you realized you wanted to join?
No,
What did you do? Like
there wasn't any at the time.
at the time, yeah. So it's just like, did you self like,
Yes. Yeah.
oh, that's
Obsessively,
awesome.
obsessively. I obsessively,
Wow.
like, absorbed as much information. I read the books. Like, there's a lot of, like, books that I think you don't hear about lately. Like, it's not, wait, what is it called? Don't Make Me Think. That was a big one. Steve Krug. And
Steve Krug.
yeah, Steve Krug. And It's Not Rocket Surgery, I think, is another one that's a big one. There's lots of books have come out in the last 8 years, that are quite good. But I just read as much as I could. And then when I was like, when I got my first role, I watched people that were kind of
Wow.
above me, like a hawk, watched how they did things, and I just absorbed it as much as possible. I don't think there were a whole lot of people doing it at the time that I moved
Yeah.
into the career to UX.
Yeah, I remember when, like, back in 2014, I was also working for an agency, and like, one person, literally just one person, know how to do UX UI, and they didn't even get the chance to do a boot camp. It's mostly self-taught back in the days, and it's just a very like good skill to have. You just have to, if you want something, you just have to have the passion to learn it, and you don't even need to join the boot camp back in the days. But that's really awesome to know that you did it that way.
Yeah, and I think for people who don't know, I'm pretty sure the first person to call themselves a UX designer was Donald Norman when he was at Apple.
Yeah.
So he kind of invented that role, and that was like in the 80s at some point. And then there were all these information architects doing, the UX generalist thing. It wasn't until, especially in Australia, I think Australia is a little bit behind in terms of the rest of the world when it comes to tech. But it wasn't until about
Really? Yeah.
2013, 14 that UX started to become more prominent as
Mhm.
a job role that you saw.
Yeah. So going back to being a mentor in general, so like in your experience as a UX designer and mentoring for Academy XI, what do you do in general? Like, can you give the viewers a bit of a, a view of what it is?
Yeah, so it's mostly at the moment one-on-one. So
Mm,
people enter the course, and I think I'm just recently come back. I've mentored and taught here a couple of times over the years, but just recently started in the last couple of weeks again. And the focus is really on individual sessions, one-on-ones. So the student will enroll and they'll do the modules at their own pace, but then I'm always available for them to come and talk to for guidance and help if they get stuck, or if they just need reassurance or validation on their direction. That's mostly what it means to be a mentor here.
yeah. How long does it usually take if I schedule a one-on-one with you?
The one-on-ones are generally half an hour.
Mm,
In which case I've found that's plenty of time,
yeah.
especially when you look at the amount of information in the modules versus, what guidance they may need. Half an hour is actually plenty of time. They can book me multiple times a week, so they can have like half an hour on Monday or Thursday, depending on what they
Yeah.
need. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then
Cool.
yeah, half an hour, and we just go through what they've been working on, what their goals are, and what direction that they need in terms of progressing their project.
That's really like it's good to have to get like, yeah, 30 minutes, I guess it's enough. And then have it like spread out along the week is also good because then of course like you get to learn new stuff as you go. I'm gonna go to the Q&A portion because I think we have like a couple questions coming in before we go to the next topic. So one guy asked, how did you get your first role and transitioning into UX UI with no experience? I guess that's something like a lot of these viewers would want to know.
Well, the way that I did it, I don't know if you could do these days, but because I've always freelanced, I did a lot of UX UI related projects off my own back. I found them, and then I just built a portfolio of work that was enough to show, and I got my
Like
first.
you did like a portfolio of like personal projects and such.
You could argue that there were paid jobs,
Okay,
but
cool.
there were definitely jobs that I looked for, so that
Mm,
I could sort of have my resume and portfolio skewed towards UX and UI. Um, yeah, and then built that up enough. And I think at the time as well, portfolios and expectations of what they are different. Like people want to see your thinking and the process that
mm.
you go through. Whereas back then, in all honesty, I probably got a little bit lucky and then
Yeah,
made up for it in the role and learnt very quickly. Which,
yeah,
which to
cool.
be honest, I would not recommend that to most people. Like, I think there's definitely something to say about taking your time, learning it,
Mm,
entering into that world. Like I felt like I was chasing my tail a bit and constantly, feeling like I had imposter syndrome and feeling like
yeah.
I had to keep up, because I didn't really have that background. Um, but yeah, that was it. So it was a turbulent and it was a turbulent time, but it was rewarding and I learned very quickly through that.
That's so good. Yeah, I guess that happens to everyone. You just have to sometimes make up something just to like get the job that you want. And most often than not, we actually learn more like along the way in the job.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So I hope that answered your question. And one question we have here, Arlen, is just out of interest. What category does UX design fall under? I often have to indicate in an online job application like human resources, accounting, finance, marketing, communication, customer service, etc. So this person is just curious, what do you think UX design falls under?
I think mostly, like, I don't agree with it, but I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
IT and technology.
Mm,
Like you might start seeing customer service it falling under that. Like that's more like of a service design thing. It's constantly changing and there are no absolutes in it, but I think mostly it comes under information
On the
technology.
yeah, and I guess it also depends on the company that you work for. Like UX could be they're probably fixing a certain department, and that could be used internally. So it could be for that use as well, or tech. So it really depends. To the anonymous person who asked this question, do a bit of research on the company and like where you're applying for and what this role would entail. Would it be like to cater to like their clients, or would it be an internal position to apply the UX position in? So yeah, it kind of depends, but mostly these days, you're right, Arlen, it's in tech. It's basically in tech. Yeah, and last question. As a mentor, how many mentees do you take under your wing?
I actually don't know the figure just yet. Again, because I just started in the last week. I've spoken to around about 10. I think it's I think it's more than 20, but I'm not quite sure the total number yet.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the course that you're taking with Academy XI and like how many students are enrolled as well. And then it's up to like managing how many mentees you can attend to for that week or the next. And yeah, basically, I guess that's it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, but
Um,
managing and doing one-on-ones with mentees is my primary focus. So most of my
yeah,
time is taken up doing that.
cool. Yeah, it kind of does it feel like overwhelming for you as a mentor, having to deal with different mentees at a time? How did
Absolutely, absolutely not. I really like that. And I think having so much experience doing so many different things and also working on multiple streams, I kind of enjoy jumping in and out of different contexts. So, you know, like you might have a mentee that's starting the course and you might have one that's towards the end of the course. And I kind of
yeah,
relish in the ability to jump in and out of different contexts.
yeah, it's good to be able to help them at different phases, especially for you to put your shoes in different phases of the course. I guess one burning question here is it really necessary to have a mentor or a design mentor in this field?
Real answer is no,
Mm,
but it sure is helpful. I know when I first started in it, like I spoke to before, you know, I felt imposter syndrome, and I probably felt like I couldn't approach people to ask questions because I felt like I had to live up to an idea of
mm,
where I was at. And there were probably many, many times where I wanted to, but the way that I did it was, yeah, like I said, by watching people
yeah,
who I really respected. So in a kind of way, I did have mentors, just not in an official capacity. And yeah, but like learning from other people, I think regardless of whether it's in the capacity of your mentor, you're always going to get something out of that, especially if they're more experienced than you. So it definitely helps.
that's good. Yeah, I guess just grabbing like opinions here and there from anyone you encounter is also like kind of like a mentor experience, like learning from the best, learning from people who are ahead of your time or ahead of the career. Yeah, I guess my next question would be what I think we talked about like talking with different students, right? Mentoring them. What can you give us like one thing that surprises you or impresses you most as a course mentor with Academy XI?
Well, it's interesting that question because there's a parallel to being a mentor and working in the industry. It's all related
Mm,
and never surprised, but constantly impressed, I would say.
yeah,
And the reason being is I think a lot of people think that you need to have a certain personality to be a designer. And that's absolutely not the case. Anyone can be a designer.
yeah,
When in like I sort of say in the real world, the working world, the corporate world, there's a style of running design sessions. We call them design sprints, and that is what is involved in that is getting people from all areas of the business. So whether or not they've got anything to do with design or not, or they could be business analysts, they could be CEOs, whoever, get them all into a room, and everyone, what you find when you do that is like everybody has the ability and capacity to come up with something amazing, like great ideas. They don't all come from the designers, they come from everybody. It's a very collaborative thing. So I'm always constantly impressed at the ideas that I see in my mentees' projects and the way that they direct them.
The way like you get to listen to each of the individual's thoughts and ideas, and sometimes like you're just one person, and then you hear this idea come up from this person and then another. So it just amazes you, probably even myself, like when we do brainstorm sessions at work, it just amazes you, like, oh, I didn't think of that before too, or new things come up.
And it doesn't matter
That's
who you are, you can't think of everything.
yeah, true.
Everyone's
And it's
got a different
always
point and perspective, and that's the value of anyone moving into design is like it's all based on your experience and your perspective, and no one shares that. It's like as individual as a fingerprint.
yeah, that's awesome. We have two more questions that pop out here. Yeah, let's go to this question. When you say that mentoring is your primary role at Academy Excite, does that also mean that you will be teaching the cohort, or will the course be taught by someone else and you will be focusing on mentoring and providing guidance as a mentor? Sorry, it's a stupid question. No, it's not a stupid question. It's actually a great question.
There are no stupid questions. Yeah, so we also run live sessions, and I do facilitate some of those sessions, but I have a partner in crime that facilitates other ones. So there's the live sessions and there's the mentoring. I'm the lead UX mentor, so I need to be across what those live sessions look like in the content, as well as the content in the modules that you guys will study at your own pace. But when I say primarily, most of my time is taken up doing one-on-ones.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. So you have like a partner who does most of the teaching, is that right? And you also do that, but most of your time is spent like probably 80% mentoring.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of it's all an opportunity to get feedback, and
Yeah.
the live sessions are very much focused on sort of talking about things that you just can't read. So Jitesh is my partner in crime that I mentioned. He's got a lot of experience in the industry as well. And between the two of us, it's about going through and recapping some of that course content, but also giving our own examples and experiences of like when we face those things in the industry, and sometimes anecdotal stories. So it's just about giving more context to it.
Yeah, that's true. I hope that answered your not stupid question. Thank you so much for answering that, Arlen. We have another question from Daniel. Do you have the capacity for one-on-one with alumni who may be struggling to enter the industry? Okay, interesting.
Absolutely.
Would you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, Daniel, you got that. Probably later we'll put down Arlen's LinkedIn so you can connect with him later in the day. But yeah, that's good to know.
I'll do what I can for sure.
You're welcome, Daniel. He said thank you.
Welcome.
Another question too from one of our audience: how can I build mentoring skills without having a design team to manage, or like not have that experience in the past? I am a solar designer looking to gain experience in this area. Good question.
It is a good question, and it's not one that I'm sure I have an absolute answer for. If you don't have a team to bounce off, and you don't have people that you kind of lead or direct, there's not really any way to do it, I guess, unless you do it in your, I think what's required is a level of empathy and patience. And I suppose that they're qualities that you can exercise in your day-to-day life. If you can build them up, then it doesn't matter what industry it is, you'll always be able to mentor someone. It's really about listening more than talking. You need to understand where people are coming from to be able to direct them and lead them in the direction that they need to go.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer, Arlen. Yeah, you have to have patience and empathy. And yeah, you don't really need, I mean, it's a plus to have that experience of being able to work with a team, manage a team or something. But mentoring as a solo designer, look, whatever your experience in doing any projects, either as a freelancer or doing it with a company, you have that experience to share with anybody. And that alone, that itself is a good experience. And also hearing from these students what they want to hear, from what they like, hearing their experience and what help they need is also very important. So yeah, thank you for that question. And last question on the box: how can a mentor help you develop as a UX designer after you finish boot camp?
Well, you never stop learning.
Yeah.
That's like the short answer. So a mentor, like when you've done the boot camp, like you've created a foundation, but then you still have to build upon that foundation. And if you haven't worked in corporate before, it's not just about design skills. It's about people management skills, like what they call soft skills. And when I say people management, I'm not saying that, you manage people under you, but you will have to work alongside different teams or departments and whatnot. And they all take a degree of developing in terms of those skills, even writing things like emails and scheduling and being organized, like they're all skills that are important. So yeah, finding a mentor will help you. And also too, if you've just done the course, there are a lot of different facets that UX UI kind of covers. There's research, there's like prototyping, usability testing, and it all depends on like where you want to skill up in those, or like what direction, or if you want to specialize or generalize. And mentors can help you kind of focus on the direction that you need to go, and help you identify the steps you need to take to get there.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. We have another one pop up here. Oh, someone is asking, can you please guide some of the variety of topics that you mentor upon? Asking it so that I can get an idea what to expect to structure the mentoring session for this course. Oh, this sounds like it's coming from a student. Yeah, so he's asking, what are some of the topics that you mentor upon?
So everything that's in the course, plus anything that relates to working alongside UX. Like it doesn't have a start and it doesn't have an end. Like if I can help direct or give advice on almost anything, then I will. Like learning a new skill, there's the design aspect of it, but there's also like it's difficult, it's challenging. And I think when it comes to talking to some of these mentees, it's really about encouraging and validating their experience and where they're at, appreciating that it is a difficult thing to start transitioning into this maybe space where you don't have experience. It can be difficult. So I think you could basically expect it. You can ask me anything and you can expect almost everything. But if you want to focus it, the course offers everything from research to usability testing and beyond. So anything within the realms of UX UI.
Awesome. Anything that you come across that you're unsure of, ask Arlen.
Go away.
All right. I think we've answered this question before. Do we need to be expert. No, I don't think so. Someone's asking, do we need to be expert in design skills to become a good UX designer?
Well, I think I know where that question is coming from. I'm going to answer it in, I think, two ways. You will become an expert at design if you keep going in terms of your career progression. I am assuming, though, when you say design skills, which is a very subjective term,
Yeah.
you're talking about visual design skills. That's what I assume, because I hear that a lot. And the answer to that is no, you don't. Like, you could be a UX researcher, for example, and that you basically don't really even do mock-ups or wireframing or anything like that. So you don't need to have visual design skills to become a good UX designer by any means. It's about problem solving. That's the thing.
That's good. That's good to know. And another last question here. Can you give us tips on where or how to find a great mentor post-graduation? Are there any UX groups or associations that you could recommend joining for networking?
Post-graduation, if you get a role in a team, I would say then you have an opportunity to have a mentor, because you will probably most likely have a manager. That would be the most obvious avenue. Outside of that, I think there's a lot of meetups, and the big one when I was starting out was IXDA, which is the Interaction Design Association. Now, I'm pretty sure there are quite a few design meetups. I'm not across them all, but IXDA is a good one. I think it's called Design Research Meetup, which is quite good. There's so many meetups. You'll find them on LinkedIn if you want to. That's a good place to network, and I think they even offer mentorships at some of them.
That's cool. Yeah, so I hope that answered your questions. Just go out there. I've seen a lot of groups on LinkedIn as well. For myself, for my category, not just UX UI. So that's a really, really good venue. Yeah, Meetup is also a good place to find meet new people. Another question, how do you know if that mentor is the right match for you? That's kind of good question again.
Good question. It's a tough one, and I think it's a personal thing.
It's like finding your therapist.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's like a degree of risk involved. I think anyone with experience is going to be able to teach you something. And I think probably a good mentor isn't just going to tell you what you want to hear. So there might be a degree of challenge in it, but I think you'll just have to take time and see if what the advice that you're being given, if it's relevant, if it makes sense, if it's impacting your work. Just be across that, and you'll know if it's helpful or not, I think.
Yeah, and just it's also a feeling. It's a vibe that you have to understand. And probably if you notice that your mentor just keeps saying, like, agreeing to everything that you have at some level, so you don't want that. You want someone to be able to exchange thoughts, and like range of thoughts. Our ideas are infinite. So yeah, that's good. I guess that's it for the Q&A. Feel free to pop in more questions, you guys. So I guess one of the questions we have here as well are communication strategies. That's one thing, since you do a lot of communication with a lot of different mentees that we've talked about before. So what is a strategy that you have to establish and maintain a successful relationship with the students?
I would say it's mostly just listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think this is in everything in life, and especially design as well. Sometimes the problem isn't what you're being told. Sometimes the problem is below that, and you have to dig. And I think, you can just sort of talk at people, but I prefer to listen more, talk less. and make sure that what I say is impactful and pointed. And because I care about people, I do like to ask questions to sort of get underneath and understand, where this is coming from and why, get the context around it. So I would say, yeah, listening and having an open dialogue and making the environment comfortable enough for people to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, that's true. And how about in terms of feedback? Like, what if I have a certain project and ask you for feedback? What is like, how do you do that process?
Well, you have to understand the project. And I think this is the value of having experience in the industry as a mentor, is I've done such a vast amount of projects that I'm very rarely surprised at the outcome of a project. And that's the value of, I suppose, my role here and my experience. Because I've done so much, I've seen it. I'm very rarely surprised. You get to a point in your career where you can kind of see where things are going well before they even happen. And if you come to me and you're stuck with a part of the UX process, I can give you probably 10 different tools or techniques in order to try. Some might be part of the course curriculum, some might. The reality is there's an infinite amount of tools and techniques to use. So I would definitely understand the context of where the project started and what the goals are, and do my best to help define a strategy for that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I guess it's very important to understand what the project is, what's behind it, to be able to get a subjective feedback on all these things that our students are presenting to us.
Yeah.
So how about like, have you ever had any experience with someone coming to you with a creative block or something, and how would you advise these students to like come out of it?
Yeah, well, I can't give you any examples off the top of my head right now, but that happens all the time. And
Mm,
the reality is, it's about understanding why or where they're stuck. Generally speaking, if they're stuck, it's probably because they haven't done the previous step or the one before properly. So
mm,
sometimes it can be about going back and readdressing things before you move forward. Sometimes you've got to go back to go forward. So yeah, it's really contextual, but it's never, ever, ever the end of the world. There's always a way forward in everything. It doesn't matter how stuck you are. There's always a way to achieve, at least some level of success. So there's never any real need for concern. Probably the painful part about design is, it's hard to know what exactly the final outcome will be. And people don't want that. People want to know
yeah,
exactly what they're getting into. People want to know the process. In design, it's not a linear process. So there is a huge level of discomfort on the way to achieving the goals. And I think it's just something that you have to embrace as part of, becoming a designer. That's your life. You live in the uncertainty, you live in the discomfort, and you get used to it. And it becomes
yeah,
not a problem.
yeah, that's another problem. But yeah, I guess, and also one thing that people might be a bit um like unprepared for, especially when they have a certain project and when it's time to present it to stakeholders or even to the class, like that's something that's a bit scary, especially for someone who hasn't worked in the corporate world and entering that and having this design concept idea, a project, a wireframe, and presenting it to the stakeholders. So how do you deal with that? How do you get the nerves out? How do you advise someone who has that kind of challenge?
Well, the reality is, if you want to do this job, you will be presenting, and you will sometimes be presenting to, if you're the kind of person that gets intimidated by a title, which I'm not, like CEOs or any kind of executives or general managers, that's the reality of what we do.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, this is work. So there's no need to take it personally, but I know that doesn't solve the problem. But this is a good opportunity and environment to develop those skills at a really low risk. Like it's not about you. You're learning. There's not pressure for you to be the best. There's no such thing as the best. There's no such thing as perfect. So like, as long as you do your best, everything's fine. And you will get used to talking in front of people more. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous for this thing. Hey, I'm here, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I guess it never goes away in some regards.
Yeah, there are like there's people who are so extroverted and so confident in talking, and there's also people who are like just couldn't get any words out of their mouth. So that would be something very scary for them. But I agree with you. Even joining this course with Academy XI is a good way to build confidence and like a good platform for you, for someone to just start building that soft skill that you're missing. Like hard skills are very important, of course. That's why we're taking the course, but it's also the way to improve your soft skills, which leads me to this next question. I think someone posted a question here. As a mentor, what's harder, new hard skills or instill confidence in students that they can do something completely new?
Probably instilling confidence.
Mm.
Because you have to understand where the lack of confidence comes from before you can help them build that. So that is a challenge, only from the point of view that it just takes more effort. You know, like when we talk about the hard skills, it's simple. You know, if they don't get it, it's like you just reframe it in a different way. And it's like, it kind of makes sense, but then it's like, you know, you learn by doing, so do it again. So yeah, building confidence can definitely be a bit more challenging, but probably more rewarding.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for that question. I think that was really helpful, especially to some students who find it hard to communicate. We have another question here. Do you review students' portfolio as an Academy XI mentor?
I do.
Hmm. And is the feedback also something that is expected from you?
Yes. Yeah, that's part of my role here. There's like I think a written version as well as like feedback in the one-on-one sessions. So your portfolio will come out of the work that you do here. So in a sense, from the very start, you're building your portfolio. So you're getting feedback all along the way, which will, you know, eventually equate to what becomes your portfolio. So there'll be that, but there'll also be reviews at the end.
Cool. It's good to know. We have another question here, and I guess this technically applies to a lot of things in life, but as a designer, what is a mindset that you have to keep, like have to have, especially while you're in the workplace, workforce, or even when you're doing the course?
Curiosity, I would say.
Curiosity. Nice answer. Why
Yeah.
is that?
Because if you don't, why is that? That's a good question. I'm a naturally curious person. I have to understand everything. But I mean, it again, taking it back, like, you know, we call it UX design, but it's really problem solving. And you need to understand the problem, and you're going to be motivated to understand it if you're more curious, if you want to understand it. So I think curiosity is like the foundation of everything in design.
Yeah.
You know, and having a curiosity that you could, you know, just do the course here and likely get a job. But I think, you know, the onus is on you as well to expose yourself to different tools and techniques and information around it. The more curious you are, the more skilled you will make yourself.
Yeah, that's true. We can't just sit around. I mean, UX is like technically part of the technology spectrum, and it's ever changing. If you're stuck with a 2015 concept of UX, I don't think you're going to help anyone
Mhm.
in the company or anywhere. So yeah, having curious mind and always learning and checking out the new trends and how you can apply it to your current problem with work, that would be really good. Another question here pop out just now. What's the most important tool for UX and UI today? That's kind of, that's a lot of tool probably.
Yeah, it's it's hard to say one. I feel like I know where this question is coming from too. And it's like, the reality is there's no answer to this. There's no most important tool. Like probably going back to what I said, like curiosity, if you want, like that's the most important. Like if you've got curiosity, like you can learn Figma or Sketch or whatever tool
Yeah.
you have, you know. There is no one tool. If I was to say there was like design thinking, like that as a concept rather than as a role, like design thinking is the best tool you can have, which is basically what we teach in this course, slightly condensed potentially, but design thinking is just about like the design process, how we understand it and how we come to solutions. So yeah.
On a personal note, and in your experience, and this is a question for anyone who's just starting off or doesn't know what it is to be a UX designer, what is a day in the life of a UX designer for you?
Oh, for me, it's very different. It depends on the role that I've got. Generally, it's strategy and ways of working and improvement, which is not something that your average designer coming into the industry will probably have to deal with until later on. But for a normal designer, it's probably, you know, it's mostly being a part of a team, being embedded into a cross-functional, they call them teams. So you'll have developers, product managers, designers, business analysts and whatnot. The day-to-day is generally a lot of liaising with those roles. Depending on where you are in the project, you might be doing research, you might be doing concepts, you might be doing wireframing, you might be doing usability testing, but anything within that in the project cycle and project lifetime. So it varies, but yeah. Normally you'll have some kind of a stand up in the morning where everyone talks about what they've done yesterday, what they hope to achieve today. And then you have your own time. And then to be honest, there's a bit of meetings involved.
Good. Yeah, that's kind of all roles in general. You do that stand up, and it also depends what specific task you're assigned to in that project in that phase. So thank you for answering that. And I guess we have like we're almost at the time, but we have one more room for question, and this one is from Deepika. I hope I pronounced that right. So he's asking that you spoke about how the thought process is more important when applying for a job. When showcasing a portfolio, how do you display your thought process in each project? That's a certain methodology. There's a certain methodology you employ in UX design. Should the thought process differ from the methodology?
That's very broad, but short answer is no. So when it comes to your portfolio, it's just about like connecting the dots. So you can make something up and it can look amazing, but what's the rationality behind why you put this button here instead of here? That's a very simple example. It's about the why. People want to see why you made that particular design choice. The reality is, like, when you come up with a design, you can probably do it in several different ways. What made you choose this direction? Why did you go down this route? Can you tie it back to your research? Was there something in your research that, defined, that process? That's what people want to see.
Yeah, and I guess being able to showcase the problem and have the answer, like have the solution in that portfolio as well, will really help explain a lot, especially to those people hiring you and wanting to see what the thought is behind this portfolio that you're showcasing. So yeah, that's a really, I hope that answers your question, Deepika. So if you guys have any more follow-up question, feel free to pop it in here. But yeah, I guess that's about it for the fireside chat. Yeah, and we have, I think, a good amount of questions there, and that was really, really helpful, especially for our students who are enrolling in the course. Thank you so much for that, for the time you spent with us, Arno.
Thanks for having me.
Arlen, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's really lovely talking to you. So To anyone who's new, feel free to check out our website and reach out to AXI if you're interested in learning more about our service design, product management, and CX design. And also, we'll send you a recording of this webinar, and also Arlen's LinkedIn for you guys to catch up. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.